I'm him. I'm the guy who did all this. Okay, it started off about 3 years ago when, just after I first talked to you about a gallery, and I decided to put together some pieces as kind of commemorative of my wife, who is no longer with us. And that started the whole thing. And I thought, she used to be an organic gardener, and she had a garden, and I built the gate to the garden. In fact, I put the fences up, but I'm a lousy fence builder and a lousy gardener. And so as a result, I haven't maintained anything. And the stuff I built started to fall apart. And so I thought what I ought to do is just kind of commemorate the thing with essentially drawings and paintings of the gate as it was. Gates are, you know, basically horizontal and vertical, so there's no big deal. And I decided that the gates would deteriorate as I am deteriorating, and as Louise would have, and so I started painting broken gates. And there are some of those in the show here. And I just decided to go a little bit further and stay with the landscape theme, but depend more on spatially moving into the pictures. In other words, making the landscapes more spatial, but not necessarily more real. And so I started introducing large geometric forms into the picture instead of the gates themselves. And that's pretty much culminated where you are with the show. Right now, I am doing fields of grass, which are extraordinary, as my daughter will vouch for. They're gouaches. I was sitting in my gouache chair and looking out my window with which is right next to it, with the shade pulled almost down to the bottom, so I could see out a slit. And there was my road coming into my property with all this grass growing around it. So I did a little sketch because I had nothing better to do, and so I decided to do it. And I'm setting up my new paintings, is what you're seeing. And they are extensions of these, very heavily textured, as most of these are. And I think the continuity will be there. They won't have the same kind of spatial situation. They will seem more like huge open areas. Is that fair? I think the palette is right now undistinguished. It's mainly the palette that I use mostly, which is sienna black and white. I think things are going to go crazy as far as color goes, if I'm guessing right, but I haven't gotten there yet. In essence, I always start with black because I think in black. And so you build a picture out of black to get the structure that you want and the space that you want. And then you start to manipulate it. The issue is I need something tangible to begin to work. And that tends to be what I do with the black, is try to establish the tangible aspect of the picture. And I will keep changing the picture, even though I start introducing color. If I don't like where it's going, it's go back to the black and start manipulating. So black is a thinking process. If I were to define my paintings are an issue of light moving through space. And that's pretty much says everything about the pictures. The more recent things are evolutionary. In other words, you make a few marks, you look at it, you make a few more, you look at it, you make an area, you look at it. And so it was to work, the work in the beginning was to establish where the basic structural forms were that built the space. Then when the space is built, he introduced the light into it as an issue. And so the most recent ones had no rationale. The original gates is a gate. You know, we got a fence on both sides, so it's pretty easy to explain. And when I did the broken gates, I'd start off with a gate, and then I'd break a piece off and lay it down and push something over, and it's just evolutionary. So my mother signed me up. There was a little paint store on the corner of Coney Island Avenue and Avenue J, right next to the bank. And they had a second floor in there, and they was giving artist lessons. And my mother signed me up when I was maybe 10 or 12 years old, something like that. And the artist there stuck a picture of George Washington up on the thing, and gave me a little canvas and told me, paint that. And I painted the portrait of George Washington and said, that's the worst goddamn thing I've ever seen, and didn't touch him again. I went to MIT, and it was an engineering situation. And I gravitated to architecture, which I was very happy about. And within the architecture program was an art history course. And one of the things we did was went to the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. And in that museum, in the permanent collection, was one of the major Gauguins, which was about 8 feet long, 6 to 8 feet long, of a young man reaching up, who are we, where are we come from, where are we going? It's one of the major Gauguins. And we were walking through that, and I saw that painting, and it froze me. And I sat there, and while the rest of the class wandered through the rest of the museum, I stayed with the Gauguin. And I decided that that's what I wanted to do, paint another Gauguin. Not Gauguin, but paint. And so I took a scholarship thing to the Museum of Fine Arts school and went there for 2 weeks and was terribly disappointed in the way they taught art. So I walked out and decided to teach myself. And that was, you know, and then we moved to Texas, and so that's the way it worked.